Hello everyone, this is my review for Timex 1983 and the new dial color of navy. I am super impressed with this watch, so let's cut the mumbling intro and let's get it started. Okay, so usually I've been kind of skipping the presentation portion, but I kind of have to mention it for Timex because this is my second Timex and they have been sending their watches in the exact same fashion, and it is god awful. So it comes in this tiny little box and a cushion that is way too big for the watch, and that's pretty much it. I am surprised that there isn't a handwritten note from Timex saying that you are worthless, because the presentation is god awful. So 3 out of 10 for me. Okay, so let's go over the specification. The watch is listed at dimensions of 34 millimeters in diameter and 12 millimeters in thickness, but I measured the thickness at around 12.5 millimeters, with 2.5 millimeters of that being the box acrylic crystals. Inside, there is a Miyota A215 driving the watch with a beat rate of 6 beats per second and 42 hours of power reserve. So this Miyota movement is pretty much equivalent to the NH35 when it comes to price and performance. I would say that there are some complaints about this particular movement, especially about the noise and the possibility of the second hand kind of stuttering at certain times, but I have not observed either of those issues. Also, the Miyota A215 movement that is being utilized for this watch is post 2018, so there will be a hacking functionality with this particular movement. Okay, so let's get to the good stuff. I thought I would hate the living hell out of this bracelet, but I actually kind of like it, maybe even love it. It is an expansion bracelet with no visible clasp, screws, or pins. Therefore, the sizing adjustment can be made by pushing the inner portion of the expansion links, which will unlock the latch, and voila, you can remove the links to find your perfect sizing. Also, it is extremely comfortable on your wrist, which I did not expect it to be. The lack of clasp in the inner portion of the wrist makes it feel super comfortable, and the materials that is being utilized on the inside of the bracelet also makes it really comfortable to wear for the whole day. I even love the bracelet visually as well. The center portion being brushed with the edges polished works really well for this particular model, and with the heavy tapering that is happening from 20 millimeters to slightly less than 16 to 15.7 millimeters. There is a visually heavy tapering that is happening on the bracelet itself, and that is accentuated because the watch diameter is so diminutive at 34 millimeters and the lug width being 20 millimeters. Just visually there is a heavy taper, which I really love. I love me some tapering on my bracelets. I love me some tapering on my straps. I love me some tapering on my pants. So I really love this bracelet visually. Now, I would like to call out a couple of potential cons though. One, I could see it being a hair puller, which I would have no idea. And two, I don't know how the elasticity of the bracelet is going to hold up over time. And finally, as stated on the Timex website itself, the bracelet can fit at max 7.5 inch wrist, and I could confirm that. I mean, I have it sized for my 6.5 inch wrist, and there is about 16 millimeters or just slightly over 0.6 inches of bracelet that has been removed to fit my 6.5 inch wrist. And obviously, with it being an expansion bracelet, I think 7.5 inches is the max that you could get with this particular expansion bracelet. So if you are, jointly endowed and want a 34 millimeters on your wrist for whatever reason, you are probably going to be out of luck with this particular model. Okay, so since I yapped forever about the bracelet, let me quickly go over the case. It is, as mentioned, 34 millimeters in diameter by 12.5 millimeters in thickness. So while it is compact, it is somewhat kind of thick, It's kind of shaped like a Latina who's going to ruin your life, and the thickness, you kind of feel it on your wrist. It feels a little bit heavier than what you might expect a 34 millimeter watch to feel like. And as far as the visual presentation of the case itself, the majority of the case is brushed really nicely, and there is a box acrylic crystals that's going to anger the sapphire demanding crowd. And in the back there is a bit of a protruding solid case back, going back to my Latina analogy, and I think it kind of makes sense because it has to fit that Miyota A215 movement, which is slightly narrower, but also slightly thicker. So it's slightly narrow in dimensions to 34 millimeters case, but is also kind of slightly thicker as well. So it kind of explains the protruding case back. If there is a negative about this case, it is definitely the crown. It is severely flat. I don't have fingers of like a rock climber or anything like that, but I have a hard time grabbing and pulling out the crown on this model. And if I am able to do it, it's because I'm kind of using my fingernails. So I'm just telling you, you might need your girlfriend's help in pulling this thing out. And well, that is not a euphemism for sex. I'm talking about like actually pulling out the crown and utilizing the watch. It's going to be really hard for you to grab and kind of utilize that very, very flat crown. Okay, so going over the dial. The dial is a truly navy colored dial with pretty decently polished baton hour markers. There are the usual callouts that are printed from Timex, but it's not overwhelming in any way. Actually, it works really well with this model. There is also a very tiny date wheel at the 3 o'clock mark that lets you know the time as well as how old you are, because you need to have like vision of a Superman to kind of read that thing. And thankfully there is no lume for the sake of having a lume. It's just a very nice polishing that is done throughout the hands as well as the hour markers, and that is sufficient enough for me for this particular model. Now, the thing that I would like to call out about this dial is that there is only about 23 millimeter of dial visibility. So it's going to look actually a lot smaller than other 34 millimeter square watches. For example, I have a Seiko Silver Wave, which is also 34 millimeters in square form. But this particular watch has a dial visibility of 27.5 millimeters. So to the naked eye, the Seiko Silver Wave is going to look much, much larger than the Timex 1983. Therefore, I just wanted to call this out. If you have any hesitation about 34 millimeter because you feel as though it's going to look too small on your wrist, I might want to skip this particular model. Okay, so in conclusion, I really, really like this watch. There are some cons though. It looks a little bit smaller, whereas a little bit heftier, and I do have some concerns about the durability of that expansion bracelet as time goes on, but it is basically a $200 watch, and like the Falcon Eye, the 1983 from Timex feels and looks way more premium. I actually like this watch much more than the very, very similar Boo Retromatic that I owned in the past, which is also a square watch, slightly larger in diameter and 36 millimeters. But that watch used a very, very similar NH35 movement, but was double the price of this particular Timex. So, you know, if you have your eye on this particular model and are interested in it, I would say go and buy it. Maybe just for the presentation, because you need to be taking down a notch on your self-esteem. And Timex will definitely do that with that presentation. So that's pretty much it. I think I have another review coming up in a week or so. So I will talk to you folks then. All right, peace.